Good evening, America, and welcome to the Monday edition of Just the News, No Noise. And for all of you who served in uniform, happy Veterans Day. We salute you for the extraordinary sacrifices you've made and your families have made for this country. Now, I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from Washington, D.C. in the WireToFishCoffee.com studios. Wire to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. You know why? Because it was my favorite coffee. I now love it. You can go right now to WireToFishCoffee.com and get a fantastic 10% discount, or you can just take a picture of that QR code. It'll get you right there. You can get 10% off with just using that Just the News promo code. Go support them. They support us here at Just the News and Real America's Voice. All right, we are just a few days from the election, but Donald Trump has already sent an unmistakable message with his first few personnel choices for his second term. He's announced in the last few days Elise Stefanik as UN ambassador, Tom Homan as border czar, Lee Zeldin as EPA director, and Stephen Miller as White House deputy chief of staff. Now, what's common about all four of those? They're all no-nonsense people. They take their job seriously. They focus on everyday Americans' wants and needs, and they don't really care much about the global elitists or the Washington special interests. And that has already riled up Washington in a pretty big way. And here's something that will probably even rile them up a little more. A pollster today said that if the president-elect's new team can stay focused on making America affordable again, defeating inflation, of course, making the country secure again, secure that border, round up those criminals, and restore some common sense to public policies like women sports, he could become one of the greatest presidents in American history. This is from Scott Rasmussen, who we've had on this poll. He's not a big Donald Trump sycophant. He's just a pollster. He says, quote, Donald Trump has now the opportunity to become the most influential president since Ronald Reagan. That is a big, big statement from a pollster who tends to be pretty reserved and careful. What does he mean by that? He means that if Republicans can tackle the issues that they promise, if they can get things done, particularly on inflation, insanity, and insecurity, there is a place in history for them because the moment calls for it. Pretty big words from a pollster, like I said, who's usually very cautious in what he says in the predictions he made. It's a great time now to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head from Los Angeles. Amanda, happy Monday, happy Veterans Day. Scott Rasmussen isn't prone to making superlatives. Those are some pretty big words today.
No, I think that directly reflects what I think a lot of Americans are feeling and hoping to see in the next 4 years. Happy Monday to you, John, and happy Veterans Day to all of our amazing veterans who have served our country and signed that blank check to our great nation. So there's a lot to get to, and President-elect Trump is already hitting the ground running. He is making decisions on who's going to be a part of his new administration, as you just mentioned, John, and one of his picks is getting a lot of attention, that being his new border czar, former acting head of ICE under his first administration, Tom Homan. And we already know kind of what to expect from Tom Homan, who promises to be much tougher at the border than former border czar Vice President Kamala Harris ever was. But to get a little bit of an indication, here's a clip back from 2019 where he went toe-to-toe with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over President Trump's border policy.
You recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father from his
Mr. Homan,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
He never misses a beat. And I think that we can expect, absolutely, we can expect actual law enforcement at our border this time around, which will be very nice to see. And another thing that we can expect is how the media is going to report on all of this. CNN's Jim Acosta already started opening up a recent show like this.
Donald Trump's radical ultra-nationalist agenda beginning to take shape this morning. Mass deportations, tariffs, tax cuts for the wealthy, and a new missile defense shield with the help of former NFL player Herschel Walker. We're starting to learn more about Trump's radical agenda. I was just talking about it a few moments ago. Let's go through some of the most repeated promises out on the campaign trail. We're going to show this to our viewers. Mass deportations of 11 million undocumented immigrants, unprecedented tariffs on foreign goods from from all countries, but especially China. Trillions in cuts in government spending, he says, with the help of Elon Musk, reversing regulations aimed at addressing climate change, building a new missile defense shield with help from former NFL player Herschel Walker, and the list goes on and on.
Securing America's border. Oh, no. Ugh, totally unbiased journalism from Acosta there. But my question is, why is any of this seen as radical? With President Trump especially winning the popular vote, it really only seems to me like these are just common sense solutions. All right, John, I'm going to throw it back to you so you can bring in our first guest of the evening, because I know that he's going to have plenty to say.
We're going to have so much fun just with the sizzle reels we have every day, just watching our colleagues in the media. They just simply don't get it. They didn't get the message that Americans sent on Election Day. They're going to be grappling with it for a long time to come. They're in denial. All right. Well, I can't think of a better person to kick us off on this Veterans Day, on this day when President Trump has already made very consequential picks for his cabinet and for his inner circle team, then my good friend. He's the host of America First. In fact, I was just on his show a little while ago on the great Salem Network. He's a former member of the first Trump administration, and he is our great friend, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Seb, good to have you back on. All right, I want to ask you about this. There seems to be a very common trait in these first 4 or 5 appointees. All of them no nonsense people. They're not the sort of people that go to the dinner parties in the global elitist events overseas. They're people that like to get a job done for people here in America, right?
So let me address the radical policies of the second Trump administration. Poor little Obilio. What a sad little man that Jim Acosta is. It reminds me of this story. A good friend of mine who's an old school, real journalist like you, John, and he was being interviewed about his friend, Sebastian Gorka, being inside the White House. And the interviewer from the fake news said, he's such a fringe individual, isn't he? And my friend, Rich, you know who you are, he said, fringe? That's a bit strange because he's the one inside the White House and you're not. So when the majority of Americans give President Trump the mandate in the Electoral College and the popular vote, guess what, little Jim Acosta? You're the radical if you disagree with it, because the majority of Americans want President Trump. The lack of self-awareness, it's just too delicious, John.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, Seb, and when they were in that segment outlining all of the things that could happen under Borders Are Tom Homan, but President Trump, it felt like one of those Motley Crue news segments, but instead of girls, 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 it was fear, fear, fear. It doesn't feel like the fear thing is working for Americans anymore, though, because everyone recognizes the fact that it's going to be the criminals, the terrorists who go first, and then, you trickle down from there. Is the fear thing working?
Motley Crue, you are way too young to be quoting Motley Crue. Look, John made this fascinating point on my radio show today. He said, if you look at the last 6 days, and I can't believe it's only been 6 days, even from Biden on down, they kind of weirdly dropped he's a Nazi, he's Hitler, and they're attacking already the policies. The Mark Elias War Council this week that's going to attack the, deportation orders. I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody's realized that the vituperative ad hominem attacks are one of the reasons President Trump won the election. I don't put full faith in that, because now they're attacking the voters. When you've got commentators on CNN saying, yes, Trump won because all of those women-hating, misogynist black men voting for President Trump, they're still misdiagnosing it. But it's fun to watch.
It is. It is. It's almost better than late night comedy, which isn't very fun to watch these days. So, Seb, I want to talk a little bit about the mission at hand. Scott Rasmussen wrote a memo to his polling clients that I thought was brilliant, which is Donald Trump made 3 clear promises. We're going to conquer inflation, we're going to conquer insecurity, and we're going to conquer insanity, all those silly things that liberals did that made no sense to the American people. And if he does that, he'll be as consequential as Ronald Reagan was, inheriting similar problems back in 1980. Your thoughts on what he said and the sort of team he's already assembling to tackle it?
Look, I love Tom Homan. He's an absolute fighter. He's going to get rid of the threat to America from illegal aliens. You look at Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller was the genius behind the president's original immigration policies in the first term. So the fact that he's going to be deputy chief of staff and maybe even the Homeland Security advisor inside the White House is well deserved. Elise Stefanik fighting for the president is going to make the liberal brains explode at the United Nations. Who else am I? Oh, and then Susie. I mean, it was so weird. The misogynists have chosen a woman, the first ever woman to be chief of staff, who is key to the success of the president on Tuesday. This is what I used to call in the White House moving at the speed of Trump. Yep. You overwhelm the enemy. You overwhelm the haters. And look at the man who did 250 rallies, 4 or 5 in a day, getting back to Mar-a-Lago at 2:30. You've got to have people like Tom who can keep up with President Trump, because this is going to be the freight train of Republican politics for the next 4 years. But as Rich Barris, one of the few pollsters I trust, said, the rest of the GOP must internalize President Trump's value system, because we only get 4 more years of him. We're going to have elections in 2 years' time, and the people want to see all of the GOP bring the results President Trump is promising. So no Thune rhinos in the Senate. We've got to have Scott, and we've got to be MAGA in 360 degrees, because that's what the American people demanded on Tuesday.
Yeah, they chose it.
Yeah. Yeah. Seb, I think that it's been firmly established that this Republican Party is not the Republican Party of the Bushes or the Cheneys or any of those other dynastic families. But you've still got some of those folks up on Capitol Hill. Some of them are actually running for congressional leadership. For those people, do you think that they will be willing to get on board for President Trump's agenda, or are they going to still be undermining him?
The Cornings and the Thunes of the world have a very important decision to make in the next few days. Do they want to have a political future, or do they want to fling themselves on the ash heap of history like Mitt Romney, Kinzinger, Liz Cheney did? Because that's their choice. This is now an America First party, and having JD as the deputy to President Trump tells you this is the America First party. So it's a very functional question. It's a very simple DC question. Do they want to be thrown out by their own electorate, or do they want to be associated with this incredible sweep on Tuesday? Because if they do, if they want to have a political future, they have to support the president, they have to look like the president, they have to talk like the president, and they have to deliver on these policies: prosperity, safety, and none of the, what was it Rasmussen said, the insanity, the woke insanity of the Democrat Party, which has been soundly and roundly rejected by every kind of American of every hue and color on Tuesday night.
Seb, one last quick question for you. Will President Trump have to publicly get behind Scott to push him over the line, or do you think there's enough going on behind the scenes to get him there?
I'll say this is somebody outside of the campaign, outside of Mar-a-Lago. I'll say what Sebastian Gorka wants to see.
Sure.
I would like to see President Trump full-throatedly say who he wants, and I would like that to be Scott, because otherwise the swamp has that magnetic, huge sucking vacuum power, and they'll do what they normally do. So no, a public, pro-Scott action from the president is what we got to see. That's my humble request, Mr. President.
Yeah, well, humbly made, but wisely made. I think it's a good piece of advice. Seb, as always, a great honor to have you on the show. I love being on your show. I love watching your show. You are a star. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Our listeners love it as well. Thank you, guys. God bless.
You too. Back at you, my friend. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when you come back, we're going to tell you a little bit about how you personally can help a homeless veteran receive a home. It's going on under the great auspices of our good friends at Tunnel to Towers. We'll have that right after these messages. Hey, America, you've heard me talk about a despicable crime the FBI calls house stealing. It's title fraud. It's a growing crime and becoming a very serious problem for homeowners. In fact, a district attorney in California recently said that title fraud cases in his small county have gone from virtually none to 73 in just 18 months. Just think about that. If you own a home or any property, your title and the hard-earned equity you've built are at serious risk. How do they do it? Well, with one document, a forged signature, and a phony notary stamp, a bad guy can take legal ownership of your home and then take out loans against it. Just like that, boom, your biggest asset could be gone. And it can happen without you even knowing. But there's a way to help stop them. I trust our friends at Home Title Lock to protect my home, and they've got a special offer for you, all to make sure you're not already a victim of this terrible crime. Sign up today using the promo code JUSTNEWS at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of their exclusive triple lock protection, giving you 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and the best part, if God forbid fraud does happen, Home Title Lock's U.S.-based team works fast to restore it at no additional cost to you. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JUSTNEWS to protect your home, your equity, and get a peace of mind. Do it today.
Because somebody cared. Somebody cared enough for us. The forgotten Americans. To do all of this. And you have no idea where we were living before. It was a rat hole with drug addicts right on the corner coming in and out freely. This is a breath starting today, and it's a bridge for our tomorrow. And we cannot thank all of you enough for what you're doing, for caring, and for being here, for all of us, the melting pot of all ethnicities, and those lines of demarcation are not there right now. Thank you.
What you just watched was a formerly homeless veteran who received a new house from Tunnel to Towers, a group that is absolutely dedicated to helping America's veterans and first responders. I think that they do an absolutely wonderful, wonderful job, and I am delighted to bring in the Vice President, Gavin Naples. Gavin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, John and I have covered your organization so much, and you do such good work. And I've seen so many stories like this. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Obviously, providing housing and services to our nation's heroes, but also the families of our nation's heroes that are struggling with homelessness is incredibly gratifying.
Yeah, it's remarkable. What I love, Gavin, and I've watched this over the last couple of years, particularly with Frank and all, the creation of these veteran villages, where actually not only are you giving a home, but you're giving an entire community to a veteran who may be trying to get back on their feet from homelessness or an injury. Talk a little bit about today. I think you broke ground on 4 new veterans villages. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, it's been a very busy year. We have over 1,300 units currently under development, 12 major cities: Houston, Atlanta, Charleston, Detroit, Memphis, Bradenton, Denver, Bayville, New Jersey, Buffalo, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Las Vegas, Long Island, many, many more veterans villages to come. High quality permanent housing for veterans, but 24/7 wraparound supportive services to address the root causes of veteran homelessness and provide that platform of rehabilitation and reintegration back into the community.
That's brilliant.
Gavin, the reality of the situation, and I hate that this is the reality, but our federal government really doesn't do enough for veterans, which forces amazing organizations like yours to step into the gap. But there are so many veterans who need help. How do you prioritize?
Sure. Well, so outside of these large metro areas where we're building our veterans villages, there's still veterans in need, and obviously families of veterans in need. So the second prong of our program is our National Case Management Network. And that is anywhere in the nation where a veteran is struggling with homelessness or their family is struggling with homelessness or about to backslide into homelessness, they're about to be evicted on, they're about to be foreclosed upon. Our National Case Management team The veterans reach out to our team. We provide them direct financial assistance to get them housed in their area, no matter where they are in the nation. And then we work with over 1,000 supportive service organizations throughout the nation to provide them their PTSD support, the mental health support, legal advocacy, family reunification, job training and employment opportunities, and VA healthcare navigation. You made a point that on the federal government, you're correct, but no one organization, no one federal government can do any of this alone. It's all these different players in the space of helping veterans working together and collaboratively that's going to really get us to a point where we're eradicating veteran homelessness.
Yeah, I love the symphony approach, because you're basically bringing in people of all different skill sets, and they're all playing together in a way that creates, I think, the best solution for these veterans who have, sometimes pretty complicated issues with health and mental health. And it's amazing to watch. You also continue to do amazing things for those who were wounded in the service of our country. I think today, another 40 homes, am I right? Another 40 mortgage-free homes today. Tell us about that. That always makes me smile when I hear it.
Yeah, we're paying off the mortgages for 40 of our program recipients, 37 Gold Star families, 3 fallen first responder families, in addition to the 1,500 mortgage-free homes we've given since the inception of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation for catastrophically injured service members, our fallen first responder families, and our Gold Star families.
So impressive.
Amazing.
Yeah, really impressive.
I don't think that it is too much of a stretch to say that Tunnel to Towers has literally saved lives, because you consider the mental health of some veterans who come home and the struggles that they have, like you were just citing, the threatening eviction, bills to pay, obviously all of the debilitating issues that they have when they come home to war. Do you have any idea how many lives you've actually saved by giving them these homes, giving them a roof over their head?
Since the inception of our program, we've touched around 10,000 veterans, over 3,000 children nationally. Not to say we're saving lives, obviously, but the nation, our nation's heroes have given their life and their limbs for our freedoms. So all we can do is provide that platform, again, of rehabilitation to make sure that they always have a place to call home in comfort and dignity and access to the supportive services that they need.
Yeah, very impressive. I want to talk, Evan, a little bit about what's next. And I also want to acknowledge something today. So today, the Biden administration announced that veteran homelessness took a downward turn last year. That's a great sign of progress. It really kind of corresponds to Tunnel to Towers' insert into this space. You've been working on this for about 2 to 3 years. Tell us a little bit about what things are working and why other people who might have been on the sidelines are suddenly getting in the game because you're in the game.
Sure. Well, we primarily use an adaptive reuse strategy of existing hospitality properties. We'll buy a hotel, completely gut renovate it, and then transform it into a permanent housing facility for veterans with the supportive services occurring on our first floor for case management, behavioral health, entitlements assistance, employment assistance. We also do ground up construction. But there's over 40,000 veterans currently experiencing chronic homelessness. The number is much, much higher. So there's still much work to do. We're obviously very excited about our program and the ability to help, but we have a long road ahead of us.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It is a theme as old as time that when you have a private sector operating within a free market, it is always going to do better than a government. And in our case, our federal government, of course, that definitely applies. Your organization has run so well and has been so successful. In this next Trump term, what would you like to see with respect to the treatment of veterans, but specifically at the Department of Veterans Affairs? What can they do better? What can you teach them so that they can meet the needs of veterans more?
I wouldn't go so far as to say I can teach them anything, but I can tell you that the system, the VA system, is quite complex. And it can be very difficult to navigate. So what we do is act as intermediaries to where we can assist veterans in obtaining their VA benefits where they don't have it, or increase their VA benefits if the situation dictates. But the truth of the matter is that veterans are very dependent on the VA. But in many instances, they're very disillusioned by the service they receive from the VA for one reason or the other. So we try to act as those intermediaries to sort of simplify the process and make sure that that sustainability is there. And obviously, we work with the VA at our veterans villages and throughout our different programs, our National Case Management Network, our New HUD VASH Services program, to connect veterans in a better way.
Yeah. It's remarkable to watch just the innovation that you do and the common sense that goes into every project you take on. When Frank said he was going to get a veteran homeless, like, how can you take that on with everything else you got? And boom, you're taking it on in a big way. I want to ask a little bit, somewhere out there today, there's someone who can go to t2t.org like I have and like Amanda has and do the $11 a month. What is on the horizon? What sort of exciting things do you guys have planned at Tunnel to Towers for the next year so that people know what they're investing in for the future?
Many, many more veterans villages. We're always still committed to providing homes for our catastrophically injured service members, our fallen first responder families, our Gold Star families. But you can go to t2t.org, donate $11 a month. 95 cents of every single dollar goes away to our programs. If you're a veteran that's struggling or in need, or you know of a veteran that's struggling and in need, you can go to our website, fill out our application form or inquiry form, or if you'd like to get involved. And that's a point I'd really like to highlight at this point, is our veterans villages outside of the case, sort of the meat and potatoes functions that we do, our case management, behavioral health. We have a tremendous amount of organizations in the nonprofit space and in the business space and even in the community space, individuals that want to get involved. They want to help our program. They come to our veterans villages. How can I assist you? They're pet therapy, art therapy, music therapy, cooking classes. They take our veterans on fishing trips and ATV rides and cook barbecues and write them Valentine's Day cards and Thanksgiving turkeys and Christmas cookies and knit quilts. There's so many different ways that people want to get involved. And so we're setting up these villages as conduits for other organizations and community members that are in the same space of helping homelessness and helping veterans, funnel all those services through one centralized location to create the most comprehensive place possible.
I love it.
You guys are such a special organization. Gavin Naples, Vice President at Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Thank you so much for being here on this Veterans Day special. And remember, everybody, go to t2t.org to make a contribution to Tunnel to Towers. I just got their Christmas wrapping paper in the mail. You'll love it. And help make a difference for America's veterans. Again, that's t2t.org. All right, coming up next, Gordon Chang will be with us to discuss what is next between China and the U.S. now that President Trump is heading back to the Oval Office.
Welcome back, America. Perhaps no country in the world will more feel the re-election of Donald Trump than China. As you know, President Trump has promised significant tariffs to change China's behavior towards the United States, create a more level playing field. Our next guest is one of our country's greatest experts on China. He's the author of the new book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, as well as the author of many other great books, including The Coming Collapse of China, Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much, John.
You wrote a brilliant article in Newsweek today. It was one of the first things I read this morning. A lot of the elitists in Washington are gnashing their teeth saying, oh my God, these tariffs are going to be a disaster. Actually, they're probably going to be a disaster from China, right? It's having a hard time attracting foreign investment, and it can't live without an American marketplace, can it?
No, it can't. Xi Jinping has turned his back on consumption as the basis of the Chinese economy, which means that he has only one plan to rescue a grim situation, and that is to export to the world. Now, if President Trump goes ahead with his across-the-board tariffs, it means that two things. One of them is that many Chinese products are just going to be shut out of the American market. The other thing is we know that China is going to pay those tariffs. We know that because in 2018, with President Trump's 25% tariffs, China paid somewhere between 75 to 81% of them. That's because they needed access to the U.S. market, and that meant that they were going to pay for that. I think the same thing's going to happen this time, which means, John, a lot of very smart people in New York and Washington who just, as you say, gnash their teeth, they are absolutely wrong on this, that they say, oh, you know, the Americans are going to suffer because of Trump's tariffs. That's wrong.
Yeah.
Gordon, one of the most reliable retailers for China is Amazon. You've got, I think, over 90% of goods on Amazon are imported from countries across the globe, but over 75% of the new retailers on Amazon they originate in China. For the American consumer, for the everyday person who pays taxes, has to buy things, maybe buys things on Amazon, what is the practical, observable outcome for them?
Well, for them, there are now alternatives. And the reason is a lot of manufacturers are leaving China. So, for instance, 2 days after the election, Steve Madden, the American shoemaker, actually said that they were taking 46% of their production out of China because they were worried about President Trump's anticipated tariffs. And by the way, just before the election, China started to drive down its currency in anticipation of President Trump's victory and Trump imposing those tariffs, which means that Chinese goods are going to be cheaper, which means that American consumers are already benefiting from Trump's threats to impose those tariffs. But I think we're going to see a lot of manufacturers move their products outside. And by the way, Amanda, there are websites that include only American-made products. So those are places where I think we should be going because we don't want to enrich a hostile regime.
Yeah, such a great point.
I love it.
We can have a difference with our own dollars. Gordon, I want to talk a little bit about the state of the China economy. We always hear it's roaring, it's doing great, but between its commercial real estate market, its sudden collapse in foreign investment, I think a large drop in people not wanting to invest in China the last few months, it's actually much more tenuous. Talk to us about how that plays into the new U.S.-China relationship once Trump takes office.
Well, Xi Jinping has put his fate in our hands because his economy right now is in a very difficult position. It's not growing at the 4.6% pace that they claim for the third quarter of this year. We don't know where it is, John, but it's probably around zero, a little bit above, a little bit below.
Wow.
But we're seeing some very disturbing signs out of China, including something that you just mentioned, which is foreign direct investment. For the first 3 quarters of this year, foreign direct investment fell 30.4% from the previous year, which really means that companies are just not wanting to put their money there. And we're seeing all sorts of problems with the property market and almost every other sector in China right now, except for exports. And I think the exports are good for China because people are trying to get their products out of China before Trump imposes those tariffs.
Great point.
Gordon, I think when it comes to China standing on its own, when it comes to leverage against the Trump administration, Trump tariffs, economic policy in general, punitive action on intellectual property theft, they don't seem to have any leverage. But we spoke to Victoria Coates last week, and she coined this term that I'd never heard of, CRINK, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Does China have any additional leverage leaning on those countries as well?
Well, it does because both Russia and North Korea owe their existence now to China. Russia couldn't prosecute the war against Ukraine without across-the-board Chinese support. And that's also is true for North Korea, where China, prior to this relationship that North Korea developed with Russia, China was providing 95% of the foreign trade with North Korea. So both of those regimes have almost total dependence on Beijing, which means that Beijing actually right now is in the driver's seat when you look at both of them. And that means that gives the United States a lot of leverage because we've got leverage over China. China has leverage over Russia and North Korea. Now, this is going to be extremely difficult because China and Russia are very, very close, and they've got their bonds much closer over the last 4 years. But it does give Trump some openings.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that will be one of the legacies of the Biden-Harris administration is just how closely we pushed Russia into China's arms, something that wasn't always there. Last question. What are some of the tools that Trump can use short-term to try to create some distance or at least try to create some benefit out of the relationship?
One of the things he can do is the Tariff Act of 1930, which prohibits the importation into the U.S. of goods made with forced labor. And almost all of China's green products and many of their other products are made with such labor of Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other Turkic minorities, not to mention regular Han Chinese. So we should be vigorously enforcing that. And if we do that, we can cut off a lot of the commerce and we can stop China's program of genocide against its minorities because we're financing that with our purchases of, for instance, Chinese solar panels.
Yeah. Such a travesty. We've allowed it to go on for so long, but it's one of those secret weapons. Pulling out that law could really have a profound effect. The sort of great ideas we always get when we talk to you, Gordon. Thanks for joining us, and congratulations on the new book.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, great to have you on. What a great guy. We love having him on. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to take a look at the extraordinary life of Home Depot founder Bernie Marcus, who passed away last week. He was a good friend. We want to honor him tonight.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. A great American passed away last week. Bernie Marcus, the founder of Home Depot and a prolific philanthropist. He died at the age of 95. And we here at Just the News, No Noise wanted to honor his legacy today. And who better to do that with us than the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network, which Bernie Marcus also founded. Alfredo Ortiz. Alfredo, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Amanda, thank you.
You know, I watched a video that you guys at Job Creators Network posted, a legacy video of Bernie Marcus. And so many people think of him as the founder, you know, a business titan, the founder of Home Depot and all of these other organizations. But I think his generosity is what his legacy will end up being. Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and his generosity was not only financial, but really, quite frankly, from a personal standpoint, his generosity extended to just great advice. I mean, few people have had the opportunity like I have, and I can't believe how honored and lucky I was to be able to work for Bernie for the past 12 years. It was just amazing, the insight and the knowledge, and quite frankly, the vision that Bernie had from just the creation of Job Creators Network over a dozen years ago to really focusing on the Hispanic market for the past 6 years. And really in the past year, he saw that this was an opportunity to really bring in a community that really has not been brought in by the Republican Party before. And so it's going to be a great loss. I miss him. He was like a dad to me. And so it's a great loss for JCN and myself personally.
Yeah, and he looked fondly at the work you did. I know how proud he was when you won the lawsuit against the vaccine mandate, the efforts to fight the student loan debt, getting the tax cuts in 2017, which you were at the table at all the time, Alfredo. The first time I ever met Bernie Marcus, and this is maybe about a decade, 12 years ago, I asked him why he started Job Creators Network, and he said, the truth of the matter is, John, if I was trying to start Home Depot today, I wouldn't have been able to do it with the regulatory regime that the Democrats had put in place. I thought, what a profound statement. One of the greatest companies in America, and it couldn't even get started today. You have done a lot over the last decade to fight that regulatory regime, put it back in the box. That was a very important legacy for Bernie, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, you know, small businesses, as you know, it's the heartbeat of America. 2/3 of new job growth is in the hands of small businesses. We saw what it was like when small businesses shut down, when Main Street shut down during COVID. It's not a pretty picture. So we need to make sure we do more for, more for our small businesses. Bernie understood that. And frankly, he was so disappointed with what was going on in DC in terms of small businesses. There was really truly no real representation from the U.S. Chamber on down. Folks weren't really representing them. And so he, being the visionary that he was, he remembered what it was like to have two stores when he opened Home Depot and how tough it was and how difficult it was to really get through. And so, you know, his focus on bringing down regulations and lowering taxes, which is the primary two focuses of Job Creators Network, that's what we do, and that's what we keep on doing.
Yeah, and do it well.
Yeah, Alfredo, on John's point about regulation, I want to ask you about what it could mean for Washington, D.C. I imagine all the way out here in Los Angeles, I'm going to hear the shrieking, should President Trump be successful in his initiative to take agencies out of Washington. And with respect to regulation, I feel like that's going to be the greatest impacts, because if you force Big Ag or the FDA to be neighbors in Idaho with America's farmers, maybe they're going to think twice before they start imposing such punitive regulations. Do you anticipate that being the future?
I sure hope so. I mean, this is something that we need. I actually wrote an op-ed on this regarding the Small Business Administration. For the life of me, I do not understand why it's headquartered in Washington, D.C. I can't imagine, you know, your regular Main Street small business owner taking a flight up to D.C. and walking through the doors of the SBA and asking for some advice. It just doesn't happen. We should shut the SBA down, take those dollars, the $150 million building that it's in, and use that to actually fund initiatives in their actual regional offices, and basically convert those into entrepreneurship centers that actually help, as the Bible, good old Bible says, right? Teach the fishermen how to fish. We need to teach the small business owners how to be better small business owners. You know, there's a 20% failure rate in the first year of small businesses. Imagine if through education we can actually get that down to 10%. millions of more jobs will be created through our small business across the country.
Yeah, such an amazing statistic. Every time you say that one, I just say, wow, that is such an opportunity for all of us. Alfredo, one of the first things that I saw you shepherd when I got to Washington was the 2017 tax cuts. It came at a time when President Trump really didn't have any achievements in his first year. He's bogged down with the bogus Russia collusion thing. You guys muscled that over the line. A lot of those expire next year. How important is it that they get renewed, and what's the battlefield look like now that we have a Republican Congress?
Well, I mean, we have to get those renewed, John. I mean, that was one of the key success stories, I think, of Donald Trump. Yes, the corporate rate went down, but really importantly, there are two big things that happened with small businesses. They got a 20% tax deduction right off the top, and they also were allowed to do immediate expensing on their actual investments into their business in terms of capital they want to put in, whether equipment or such not. And so that was to be able to grow those businesses. And guess what? With that, you were able to hire more people, invest more into your business, pay higher wages, more benefits. So those two, the 20% tax deduction and the immediate expensing, are so critical for the success of small businesses, in addition to everything else that Donald Trump has. And so, we got to keep on fighting. I will tell you, John, that the first, about 6 weeks out from the final cuts, it didn't look like small business was going to get the help that it needed during the 2017 Tax and Jobs Act. We got it through. We helped get it through. We got to make sure that that stays in there. In fact, I am pushing for it. I would like to see a 25% tax deduction for small business. So let's push that up from 20 to 25%.
I love that
idea. Yeah.
Alfredo, before we let you go, I know something that's very near and dear to your heart that kind of, bridges between the economy and the voting electorate, something that you anticipated, a major swing in the Hispanic vote, because a rising tide lifts all ships, but a bad economy sinks them as well. Hispanics showed up for President Trump by 46%. Are you proud of that?
I am so excited about that. John, you and I spoke about this at the beginning of the year.
That's
I anticipated, and I said that Donald Trump would end up winning this election with 48% of the Hispanic vote. Shame on me, I missed it by 2 points, but I'm pretty proud of the 46%. We led a Hispanic vote coalition from the beginning of this year. We focused on swing counties within swing states, and we did a little bit differently. We didn't do door knocking as much, but we went into the communities. We went with Hispanic pastors and small businesses, Hispanic small businesses, and those two within the community are the most respected and most listened to. And so we were very active in those, like I said, in those communities through the pastors and through our small businesses. Yep. And look, but we can't rest on our laurels. This is a great foundation. The Republican Party has never had this kind of support from the Hispanics. Reagan understood that a long time ago. Bernie Marcus understood that a long time ago. And so we need to build on our foundation now. And we can't drop the ball in this community and just think that we can come back in 2 years or in 4 years and count on them. We have to make sure we're there day in and day out.
I remember when you said it in a room, and a lot of people looked at you like, is he crazy? The answer is no. He's crazy like a fox. He had it exactly right.
So strategic and so smart what you guys did, Alfredo. And I have a feeling that the people who came towards President Trump's side, they're not going to regret it, especially if he listens to you when it comes to wisdom on the economy. Thank you so much for being here. President and CEO of Job Creators Network, Alfredo Ortiz, thanks so much for joining us tonight. All right, everybody, we've got some final thoughts when we come back on the other side. I think we've run through most of our show, so we may only have a few minutes. We'll get there.
Hey, folks, did you know you can join AMAC today for only $1? That's right, $1 for a whole year's membership. I want to encourage all of you to visit amac.us/justnews and activate this limited time opportunity. Just listen to all that you get for just $1. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, works tirelessly to advocate for the values that matter most to Americans like you and me: small government, strong borders, election integrity, and of course, protecting your constitutional rights. Becoming an AMAC member gives you access to free advice on Social Security and Medicare, ensuring you get the help you need when you need it most. And as a member, you stay informed with trusted news through AMAC's Newsline, the Better for America podcast, and your subscription to the award-winning AMAC magazine. Plus, members enjoy exclusive money-saving discounts on travel, hotels, insurance, restaurants, and so much more. I use that all the time. For a limited time, join AMAC and receive all of these benefits for just $1 for your first year. And only that's $16. So you can take advantage of all these benefits and help save America at the same time for just $1. Join today. Visit amac.us/justnews or call 1-888-262-2006. That's amac.us/justnews or call 1-888-262-2006.